Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel, and today we're doing something a bit different, C++. Now for those who are previously on my channel, you may have noticed that I'm more of a Python guy, but I've started learning C++ and I find it a really cool language, and I want to share what I learned with you guys. Alright, so this time I'm actually using a proper IDE, like a responsible person, like C-Lion for non-commercial use. Thank you to JetBrains. Alright, so I'm going to show you my first C++ program, capital. And I just want you to observe and try and maybe internally make sense of what you're seeing. And I promise you it becomes pretty trivial once you understand what I'm trying to put. Of course, my compiler seems to always know what I want to put, but so let's run this. This is a hello world script in C++. So let's break it down. First, include, which means you're just including this library and you're able to take assets from this library. IO stream, I think it's for input output stream. Then you make an int main. This main function is the main loop in your program. And whenever you have int main, you have to have a return 0 at the end. And you'll learn more about why we need to do this, and it makes more sense when you learn about function. Finally, there's a namespace called std, and in std you can use the asset cout. Cout lets you print to your terminal or output to your console and make your computer say stuff. And in this case, we do hello world. Now, these operand, the greater than sign, basically allows you to display the text as its own separate entity in a way. And that's actually useful because for different types, I actually don't need to do any weird conversions. See, if I do this, seamless. Now you'll actually learn how to do this in one single line, but this is very useful, and we'll get to that. And then we have, again, std namespace endl, which stands for end line. So we make a new white space line, and then our return 0. Oh yeah. For a lot of things, functions, if else statements, for and while loops, classes, structures, those things, you have to put them in curly braces to signify like a block of code. All right, now let's move on to variables. So in C++, we have a lot of different types of variables, and those are important because in C++, you have to define your variable, then the variable name, and equate that to a value. I think this is for memory because C++ gives you low-level access to memory. So for example, we start off with an integer, let's give it a variable name, and let's assign it a value. Then we have another thing called a float. A float, let's say b is equal to 2.5. Thank you, compiler. And we add f to signify it's a float. So that makes sure we distinguish it from another type, which is a double, which I guess is a more precise float. All right, I guess my compiler really knows me too well. Where are the cameras? All right, then we have characters. So in order to do characters, we use char for car, I guess, car. And then for characters, you have to use single quotation marks. And then for strings actually have to make you include another library, include string. And then from the std namespace, you can define a string. Let's say those are in double quotation mark. Always end all your lines with a semicolon, at least most of them. And finally, a boolean. Booleans are just true or false, lowercase first letter, unlike Python. And yeah, that's all of our base variables. Now, there are more specific ones like unassigned shortend, unassigned longend, and those are actually kind of useful in the USA Coding Olympiad. In fact, I'm planning on, grinding a lot of those practice problems with this new C++ language. It's one of the main reasons why I picked to learn it. So if you guys want to see a series on that, let me know down below in the comments. All right, if I don't forget to disable it. So Now let's move on to conditionals. So a conditional is, again, a block of code, like an if-else statement. So let's just do your thing. Age, a classic. Oh, I have to define it in age. Let's say I'm equal to 32. Now, if to start your if statement, parentheses, and this will be in the parentheses is your conditional. If 18 is less than or equal to age, output you are an adult. I think so. Else, so outside of this block, you have your else block. Then you do again curly braces, enter, to be out. You're a minor. Alright, so now when we output this, I'm an adult. Now we can actually do a and and or operator. So the coolest way to do an and or operator, in my opinion, is for and do double ampersand. So let's say 65. Print out. You should be working. Now we're going to do an else if statement. So this is like an ELIF in Python, but else if is just like another condition. Else if 18 is less than or equal to maybe less than 18. This just means that you're an adult. You're not an adult yet. And this also does not activate this statement. Okay. You are too young to be working. You can then do another else if age is greater than 65. Because you should retire. You deserve it. Probably. And then finally, I guess for an else statement. So if none of these conditions are true, well then I really don't know what to tell. Oh, I guess that's when age is equal to, no, that's called here. Yeah, so there's no else statement because there's no other conditions. So when I'm 32, I should be working. When I'm 9, I'm a bit too young. When I'm 1,432 years old, I should probably retire. I agree. Now, let's move on to for and while loops. So a for loop and a while loop are basically the same thing, but I'll show you what makes them, no, they're not the same thing. They're pretty simple. They have similar syntax, but basically in a for loop, for, you specify integer, remember, make a variable, integer I equal to 0, semicolon, I is less than some value, let's say 3. I plus plus just stands for increment to I value. Then I guess S I, yeah. And this is really a basic for loop, nothing much to say. I guess if the good thing about this is that you don't have to start at 1, and then you can actually make 1 through 3. 1, 2, and 3. Alright. Now, a while loop is basically the same thing, but you define I outside. So int I is equal to 1, while parentheses I is less than 4. Let me have my semicolon. Cout or std cout. Now, I std I++. And then, yeah, it's basically the same thing. Now, there is something called a do while loop, which just means that the while loop will do something. So I guess the syntax for that is do this, and then outside that chunk while I is less than 4. So do this statement while I is less than 4, and then we increment I. This means I will do it at least once before we start, which could be useful in some cases. And finally, the one last thing conditional is a switch statement. I should have paired this up with if statements, but my bad. So let's call day equal to int day equal 1, and that just signifies the days of the week. We write switch the day, which is a variable that could be changing. Now let's say case 1. So when day equals 1, and then I have to add a block of code for that. Cout it. You want to do Monday or Saturday or Sunday? Let's do Sunday. Let's not follow a regular workday calendar. Here. Yeah, it's Monday. And I have some Python left in me, so I will continue to make sure everything is indented to the same level. I'm sorry, I can't help it. Oh, shoot. We didn't have to see that. That's actually a program that I guess we can write together once we know everything. Case 5. And now I understand this is very boring, very tedious behavior. I probably should have done something a lot smaller. But you know, I guess it's more of a refresher for me than anything else. Oh my god. Okay. There's no way I did it again. Alright. We have our 7 cases. So let's see what happens. It's sun. Oh yeah, right. So because of this, we break it every time. So break. A break statement just means that we terminate it right then and there. But I'm intentionally not going to terminate that for one specific reason. Yep. So in a case statement, when you don't break, it activates here and I guess continues downward like this. So make sure you add your break statements, otherwise it'll be activating multiple cases. A nifty little thing to show you guys. So yep, now if I do 5, it's Thursday. Alright, so now that all of that's over with, let's move on to functions. And now, this will actually be the stopping point of the video, because I have one more video to add about a very important topic in C++ that I'm trying to wrap my head around, and I'm trying to explain to the best of my ability. And if you know what that thing is, then leave it in the comments. But a function is kind of similar to a variable in a way. If it does not return anything, type in void. So for example, void the hello word. I don't think that's how you grammatically say it, but it doesn't matter. And yeah, print hello world. Then you just activate the function right here. And yep, the hello word. Now, what if it is supposed to return something? So for you take the type. So for example, if it's supposed to return integer, do int the 43 year. And this will all just return 43. And then when we send int x equal to the 43 year and we print out x, this compiler really knows what I'm doing. Yep, it's 43. Same with a string. So yeah, I guess you got the idea. It's nothing that hard to grasp, and once you get comfortable with all of this, then you'll find this a breeze. Now, there is one other thing I want to add, but this is more like an end-all thing. Now, you know how I type in std all the time? There is a way to not have to type that in there, but from what I've heard, it's not good practice. So I guess take it from that what you will. I personally am trying to make myself not follow those bad practices. At least I don't know, but I've heard people say it's a bad practice, but I'm pretty neutral in the opinion. So instead of always having to add std, you can say using namespace std. And once you see, I actually don't have to put std as a value. See, even without std, I still have the same thing. Alright, so that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If there are any errors, anything I should have added, anything that you want me to add, please let me know, and I will gladly try and make a video rectifying or adding the quality. So thank you all for watching. Please consider subscribing. Goodbye.